Hey, how are we doing? We've got something special. Hopefully this is working. Hopefully everybody can hear me today. It's been one of those days, so give me just a second to make sure everything is fine on my end here. Just a second. As soon as I can pick up the video on my main page, we will be at it. Hopefully everybody can see me and hear me. Hang on just a second. I'm just getting a few other things ready. Hopefully we got it going. And here we go. Just a second. Okay, I'm sorry about that. I just wanted to make sure everything was straight on my end. We have got a few special things going on today. I know I had another feed up, but this is kind of a last minute call on this. We've had many issues with Hangouts. I am using Hangouts today. I hate Hangouts, but it looks like the Hangout gods are going to give it to us today. So hopefully everybody can see and hear everything fine. Yes, this is the right feed, Duncan. Yeah, I'm sorry. I had to send out a notice. We've got some special guests coming in today. Not something that happens on my channel very often. So again, the wife will pop in for a few minutes. I wanted to address and talk about a few other things. The video I put up late last night, it was like 2 in the morning or something, I think, when I actually finished and posted it and shared the link. Doing the offers to watchers. Now, I know a lot of people say that that's no good. It's not gonna, you know, give you the, hang on one second here. Let me just kill a few things. For me, doing that, I don't do it religiously. I don't do it all the time. I'm going to start doing it all the time now. We did $700 almost in that hour and 20 minutes or so while I was actually doing those 200 offers to watchers. Since then, the total's up over $1,200 overnight. That's how much we sold out of, I think it was about $9,000 worth of offers in the 200 offers to watchers I sent out. So that's a pretty darn good return on the investment. I can't say if I do the other 600 that it's going to come up the same options and the same amount coming in. Could be more, could be less. But even if you do that and you spend, an hour or two doing that many and you get, $500 out of it, it's a good thing in my personal opinion. So I think that went well overall for me. It was a good thing for me. I had many comments on that video in the short time it's been up, so I just wanted to address that. I would honestly recommend doing it all the time at this point. Again, as I said, I haven't done it all the time in the past, but I think that would be something essential in my opinion. Let's see what we got here. Looks and sounds good. Now, I can't hear myself on here is my only problem, which is not a good problem. So hang on just a second here. Okay, I got it there. Okay, I'm sorry. The Hangouts for me just never seems to work. I have got terrible internet service personally. I only have one option. I have no other means to broadcast. We will have a hardware encoder, so I won't have to deal with all of this stuff and rely on upload speeds and stuff. It'll be an upload speed for a 4G tower is what I'll have. So it's going to take a little doing to install and make sure everything works and some tests. I'll still be running the normal stuff, so I'm always going to have that as a backup once it's here and everything's set up. So just FYI, all of those of you who have been on channels had an issue that couldn't go on, you completely understand the whole aspect of it, I would hope. So that's just my opinion and take on that. So anyway, welcome everybody in here. Hang on just a second here. Again, my feed's all over the place, so I don't always see the chat like normal people do. I know some other channels have the same issue since I was on Dom's and Chris's and a few other people's channels, and I know that the chat disappears, so it's just a way, it just happens. There's not much I can do about it, unfortunately. So anyway, let's holler out a few. I got Thomas Gardner Duncan, as I said, Memphis Matt, welcome, welcome. David, welcome. Let's see here. Jason, welcome as well. Memphis Matt is already down there. Good afternoon. Well, I guess it's a little late afternoon. Hey, Carl, how are you doing? Sorry about that, guys, too, from changing you over from the other feed. Again, last minute change just came up. Hangouts is working across the board, and I don't see anything on their map. I'm always cautious on using Hangouts these days because, man, they just tank us so many times. I've had 3 incidences where they tank us. And just like even with the quality on this video, mine fuzzes in and out and gets blurry. That's not my end. That's actually Hangouts. So it's a nuisance in my opinion. If you didn't know, Hangouts is going bye-bye. So at some point, you know, by the end of this year, there may not be Hangouts. There might be a Google for Business or something like that. I have a Skype business account too that's has NDI built in and the whole works too. So we're probably going to do some other stuff with it too. But once I get the encoder, you shouldn't have any issues on going live. As long as the tower is still standing and it's, you know, a mile or 2 from my house, I don't think there should be an issue. So hey, Brian, Notebook Picker, how are you doing? Yeah, this week, I just want to holler out at that too. These last couple weeks have been the busiest time I think I've ever had on eBay, and I've went back and looked, and that's just on the store I'm sharing. Obviously, the other store is busy too, but eBay is definitely advertising. There's definitely pushes on it. You know, and plus I'm doing 2% on about half, like 10,000 listings in the store I share with you. So 2% promotional pay just to get a little boost and see what happens. Sad to say that that's what it is. I wish eBay would have just charged us a little more and not had to deal with the stupid promotions and made sure they all show up anyway. So, you know, there's ways to check that out. I've talked about those as well too. You know, I do Google tests to see if my listings show up and things along that line as well. So, you know, whatever makes it work easier and get you the sales. The other thing, hang on just a second here. I've got a conversation with somebody else that was going. The other thing I can say that will boost your overall business is the cross list. The number one thing that used to be the issue is to see how you can milk the system on eBay, what you can do to get a little boost up earlier in the listings. That's all gone once they switch to good till canceled. That's their goal. That's what they switch the system. Any tests I've done these days mean nothing. They don't come out with any difference in results. eBay has plugged all the holes in getting, you know, gaining the system, like on people who thought you could edit and that's going to do anything. Unless you change a photo and it has to relink to a different photo from a different server, it's not going to do much. Or you change a title or something, it's not going to do anything if you're just going in. Or if you like end them like you could in the past, you could end them and wait a day or so, more than 24 hours, and it would clear off all the junk that was tracking you and keeping you lower, and you get a better boost out of it. That doesn't work anymore. I've tested it. So literally our whole game plan these days, and I think it should be everybody's, is to not worry about what eBay's doing. Love eBay for what it is. Keep listing and doing everything you do normally on eBay, but take your listings with you or cross list whatever you can on another site. You know, and we're going to have some numbers here real soon with Sellbrite. I know I've been asked a ton of times about it. I think we got it all down. We've got the issues. It's going to be somewhat slow going, but all the new listings go into Sellbrite to start with. So all of those listings that are new that we're doing straight from Sellbrite automatically are able to be listed on all the sites without any issues. So, you know, when you don't have as many listings as us, it's probably the best time to start if that's what you're really wanting to do. Now, if you're not serious, and I'm going to call out some more names in a minute here. If you're not serious about doing this really full time, you got a part-time job doing something else, you may not want to do that. And again, there's nothing wrong with doing part-time or anything else, but you're going to be spending more money. You're going to have to take up more time to ship items if you cross list. So be darn sure that's what you want to do, or go into it slowly and do a soft roll into cross listing. Now, I did all those promotions or those offers to watchers last night. If you didn't see it, there's a video I just posted last night. The only problem with that is that this morning I didn't get done packing my items till, geez, I have employees that started at 2, 3 of them in the building at 2, and I had actually had them help me start packing, and Ian put labels, Jordan moved boxes, and Justice was here moving stuff around. So I had 3 other people trying to help because we sold that much stuff. And I'm not trying to brag. That's just a fact. That's just what happened. And then it screwed me in the morning because I didn't think, hey, maybe I should have had somebody in early to help pack. You know, the wife had something going on. One of my sons wasn't here. The other one had something he had to be. They were going to the museum. So it didn't leave me much time this morning. This morning was a madhouse. It literally was. So it's a good madhouse because, again, we sold a ton of money and we got a bunch of return out of it. And it was just stuff that's been sitting around. I still got, you know, a 200% markup basically on all the items I sold over what other people sold them generally. Not all the items, but the majority of them. So it was a good thing, but it's a bad thing. So if you ever do that and you got a bunch of items that you can send out these watcher, you know, offers to, make sure you think that maybe there's going to be more selling than you expected. I didn't expect, last time I did it, I did 15 or 20% in sales. This time we did a ton of sales, not quite that high of percentage, but it was a lot of items. You know, didn't realize that when you send them out in like items, like similar categories, what happened is that some of them were being watched by the same person, watched like 8 or 9 of those items and ended up buying 8 or 9 items. So it's picking and pulling all those items out. So this morning was literally right to the point, and I literally had people rushing in to help me at the last minute. I tried to get somebody in earlier, even, which I usually don't ever do. But no one could come in early enough, and you know, my son wasn't back and the other one was leaving and the wife was already doing stuff for us. So it was just a hectic morning for a good reason. At least, you know, it was a lot of money we made last night, and you know, just because of that. Obviously we still would have sold more than, you know, what we increased our sales. We did 700 in that hour and 20. We usually do more than that every day of the week in that store. So, you know, that's a typical. And that, again, we do Amazon, and there's 9 monetary platforms we're involved with. So all of that raked into last night's sales. You know, things have been growing once we started cross listing. If you haven't thought about it and you're doing full time, that should be your number one goal, is to look into cross listing and pick a program or an app or whatever the case may be that's going to satisfy your needs. For us, the need was that I wanted to only be charged the least amount of money to cross list because I have so many items. Sellbrite had the best option for us because with Sellbrite, you're only billed for the items that actually sell, that they actually have to pull down. So if you sell an item, you get billed for it. All of the other platforms, the third-party apps that do cross-listing and pull items down for you, charge by how many listings you have, which would have mentioned. I think 1,500 was the average price for the other ones, and they went up to like $3,000 for the amount of listings I had. Sellbrite, you can start off small as you sell and add more and more items to it, and it's only a couple $100. So, you know, again, everybody knows, if you've watched my show, you know I'm cheap. So, and if you're not cheap for your business, you know, you need to switch your business around and be as cheap as you can. It doesn't mean skimping on anything. It just means don't spend money when you don't need to. Don't buy things you don't need to. Buy in bulk for your like supplies and things like that. That's being cheap and knowing where your money goes. Don't just randomly drive around. Don't take shots on stuff and hope it sells. That's the point that being cheap is anyway. So let's go back and see who else is here. Let's see here. TNA Treasures, welcome. Treasure Experts, how are you doing? Finally, the other live feed did not tell us where to go. Yeah, I did post. I'm sorry. There may have been another one hanging out there. I ran a bunch of tests because, again, Hangouts has been bad. And the other night when I was going to go live, it wouldn't even let us go from OBS or from any encoder into the ingestion server for YouTube. So it wasn't just Hangouts the other time. So I wanted to make sure everything was working and have a backup. I'm not going to want to run any more feeds live if I can't have a backup, and that's what we're going to do from now on. So you might see something like that occasionally where I open up a secondary feed just to cover our bases, because I hate when I can't run a live show like this past Tuesday's show anyway. Let's say David, or Dad's Vintage Garage. How are you doing? Bend, Virginia. Lived there for a while. Thrift and Flip. Hello. Red Neckerson Resales. Hello as well. JAI. How are you doing? Those in Patreon, just before so I don't forget, I know I see several patrons in here. Video is compiling right this very second. In fact, it is done, and I am going to upload it as we're speaking. So probably about the end of the show, there will be a Patreon video. It's video number 54. So FYI on that one. I've sold plenty with offers to watchers using it daily. Yeah, I'm going to probably start using it a little more. We may switch up our work schedule with some of the employees because of that. I've got a couple that want to come in early, just to address issues and help, and so they have the rest of the day to themselves. Unfortunately, I didn't even think my wife's here, and I didn't even think to bring a chair. So I do apologize. Hang on just a second here. It's not going to. Yeah, you have to pick it up. Hang on just a second, folks. I apologize for 1 second. I know.
No green screen?
Nope, because I'm going to have somebody on. Okay, I'm sorry about that.
Hello.
I totally forgot about pulling a chair out. Again, we've had last minute everything snafus going on all day long. So let's raise our field of view a little bit there so we can see everybody a little better. Hopefully that's a little better there, folks. Again, it's been a busy week. We did the sale promotion and the offers, and last night was just a constant click on my phone. The phone was ching, 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 like constantly throughout the night. That's plus we had the normal items, my other stores, and it was just a very bad morning for wrapping up today. So,
oh yeah.
Wife pops on, as I said. We're just going to say hi and talk for just a couple minutes. I have a special guest. We are going to get Dom, the primetime treasure hunter, on tonight. I've already talked to him. The links are out. We are live with a hangout. So in just a few moments, Dom's going to chime on in here, and we're going to pop to our questions here and go from there. We shot a few segments of the wife with some squirrels. So for those of you who want to see the squirrels, our yard's like a
pond.
No, it's like a nature sanctuary almost to some extent.
Yeah.
So, but we'll show you that as well for those of you who have asked. So, again, we're on. So just a few moments here. We are going to bring Dom. And about 7:30, he will be on the show. So let's see what we got going on here. Hauptmann, how are you doing? Hope all is well. Yes, sales are excellent this month. Vintage paper keeps on selling. Yes, it does. Sandor, how are you doing? Bolo for Mama. Offers to buy is a good feature if you have a lot of listings. If it lets you do 5 offers to buyers, I would send those out. I don't care how many it has. It's going to hopefully increase your sales. Again, we do have a lot of listings. I've been doing this for 8 years.
Yeah.
She's listed most of the day since she got back in. Again, once I got stuff packed up, we had photographing being done today, listing. Well, actually 2 listers. Then we had somebody editing videos. Another one redid our credits at the end of this video. You'll see have all been redone, alphabeticalized, so I won't miss anybody or anything like that. So, yeah, we do have a lot of listings. Yeah, but again, we've earned the right to have a lot of listings. We've spent hours upon hours upon hours of typing and listing for 8+ years.
I'm doing it in my sleep.
Yeah, we've got it down to like a science, I guess you could say. But it's paying off. I can't complain about any aspect financially or anything like that at this point. And,
I mean, you could, but
well,
why?
I could, but why? I mean, this is the best time of our lives, and it's sad that I went to college and
it's sad that you went to college.
I'm glad I went to college, but the point is that we both have master's degrees, and we make more doing this and have more freedom and more abilities to do what we want doing this than anything else we've done in the past. We go to the store. I don't, worry, do we have enough for this? I don't worry about, do I have the time to take off work, or do I have this? Do I have this? I've got people, and, Ian or Justice or Jordan, any of the people that are in here can come in and fill in at least. So we don't even have to be here days. There'll be days where we just leave them listing on their own, and, that's it.
Laugh at them and slam the door.
Well, we're out eating or whatever we're doing in the day. So again, it's taken us 8 years to get to here. So this is literally the best year of our lives financially wise because of this. Had we not cross-listed, it wouldn't be this case. Amazon.
I can afford to feed the squirrels the really good nuts.
Yeah, the really good nuts.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've got a field of squirrels out
Oh
there.
yeah, they know me.
Rabbits, she's named them all in the whole works. Plus, there's some really cool birds and the hawks and.
Oh yeah, the hawk. Oh, my son and I were out in the yard yesterday, and the hawk was chasing a sparrow, and the sparrow hit our next door neighbor's house, and then the hawk got it. And that's nature, cruel, but it's nature.
Yeah, the
Nature's
hawk hunts. It brings actually one of its young and literally sits
Yeah.
in our yard.
Yeah.
We've got a center post that it's like a 4x4 that I put up for plant feeders, and it'll sit down there in the middle of the yard and eyeball what it's going to eat next.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I thought it was preening its feathers. I'm like, oh look, the hawk's preening its feathers, and then Don said, no,
he's tearing apart.
It's tearing
something.
another bird apart.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
oh,
they got to eat too. So
thank gosh I didn't have my glasses on. I
Yeah,
was just
she wouldn't have liked
enjoying
to
the
see
show.
Hey Blake, how are you doing? Michelle, welcome. Everyone is killing it. Sold lots. Oops. DAB, well, thank you for the $1 super chat. I really appreciate that. Always nice to have that.
Maybe we should put up hawk footage. That's awful. That hawk does know how to hunt, though. I mean, of course it does, or else it would be dead. But
where are we? Yeah, we are killing it. I try to send on Thursday, so when there's 48-hour reminders comes out, they get it on the weekend. Good thinking, good thinking. I don't do a lot of them. We try and just do a few here and a few there. That's the most I've done in one sitting before. Usually I don't even send them all out, honestly, because I don't care if I wait. If you wait, you're going to get a little more for them if there's something that's going to sell. You know, it just depends on if you want the money quicker or not. I just did the video to put it out there. You know, I could have sat there all day and done 884 of those yesterday. You know, that's what we had. And I still have, I think it actually went up. I think there's some more on the list. I think it's back over 700 again with ones that you can do offers on. So I thought that was kind of interesting. How much of a discount did you give on the offers to watchers? I've got most of the items I sent the offers to yesterday, Brian, like 3 times what I expect to get out of them. Most all of those items, all the paper in the trade cards and postcards, on average 3 times. If they sell for that, I'm fine. She sometimes will correct me. Once in a blue moon, we're off on prices. I had a couple damaged cards that I missed, and that's always a good point too. I know if you're just doing it yourself, you could miss something, and I've missed stuff too. But you know, it's good to have her eyes on it too, because she's as good as me when it comes to all that paper stuff too these days. Because she's seen probably any one of the high dollar cards we've ever had. Because she likes looking at them.
Yeah.
You know, we're putting books together and stuff, and we've got copies of many of the better cards already scanned in the whole works as well too. So
I would love to have kept some of the old papers of Theodore Roosevelt.
Yeah, unfortunately, you know, when you get $500 offers or $300 offers on something you don't really need to keep and you don't know what you're going to do with. We've sold a lot of stuff that were really neat that had I had a museum or something, I'd be more prone on it. So anyway, we're got about 5 more minutes and we're going to pull Dom in here. If you don't know who Dom is, I actually have his link already sitting there in the description box down below. So check his page out. He is like me. He is very methodical. He's more on information based. He's not a person just out there to get your money and watch the videos and stuff. I don't associate myself with many like that. There's some bigwigs on YouTube right now that have a ton more subscribers than I do, but I don't mess with a lot of most of them. Not most of them. I say a bunch of them just because too many are really making their money from you guys as opposed to making their money from online. 99% of my money comes from selling stuff and just selling stuff. All the other stuff is just a side note. You see my store, you got to know that that's the truth in what I do. So, you know, right now in just the store I share with you, there's $750,000 in list price items. So, you know, that's where my money comes from. And that's just the one store. We have 3 eBay stores alone. Amazon, Etsy, Discogs, Hub. I've got several hubs. You know, the list goes on. I mean, I've got more than just that. And on Amazon, we do business to business, B2B, which is a separate total app through your seller platform. We're on all the programs that they have. We're, you know, homemade by Amazon as well as several other sites too. So, you know, the money comes from reselling. I'm not YouTube aficionado that's making a huge amount of money from YouTube. The encoder is going to pretty much wipe me out for a couple months worth of YouTube income, in all honesty, but that's what we're going to do anyway because I'm so sick of the issues. A good encoder is like $800, just FYI, for a 4G capable with multiple antennas. So just FYI, that's where we're going and that's what we're going to have. So
I gotta skirt on out of here.
she's going to skirt on out. Love you, babe.
Love you too.
She's going to skirt on out, and in just a second here, we are going to get Dom on here. Let me just get to a couple questions, as I did see one. Scott, welcome. Hustle and Grind Calgary, welcome, welcome. Big eBay outage earlier this week. No announcements from eBay on the issue when it happened. I've been on every day this week. It must be just on your site, Duncan. Duncan's in Australia. I have not had an outage at all. And Dom and a couple other folks were talking about it was on the app and stuff. I don't use the app. I haven't seen any outages on eBay at all. I couldn't even tell you when I had an outage on eBay, in all honesty. What is your opinion about WorthPoint? I won't pay for WorthPoint, Dolores. Most of what I sell, I know the values fairly well, so I don't really worry about it too much, in all honesty. At least what I sell. Very rarely is there something I can't find a price on. So I don't really worry about that stuff. I do pay for one paid premium site, and that is Pop Psych. But I sell a ton of records. In just records, we sold almost $400 in records from those offers that I sent out. So, you know, that's just the offers. So, you know, I do a lot of records, and records, you have to have something else. Because on eBay, you may run into a situation on eBay that there hasn't been a record of what you have that has sold in the past 90 days, and there's none up. Discogs may not have any up or anything along that line. You're never going to be able to know what they sold for, in all honesty, on Amazon either. So just keep that in mind. So I do sell records on Amazon as well. So if Dom's handy, he can pop himself on there. I'm sure he's probably packing it in on the side and listening. Let me just drop him a quick line, and we will see if we can't pop him up on here. So in just a moment, I've got questions. Dom's been was supposed to have been on several different times, but both of the other times there was actually an issue with Hangouts. So everything is good to go on here, and we will just let him know that. And hopefully it will do what it's supposed to do. So anyway, let me pop back to some questions while we're waiting on Dom. And if you give me just a second here, I've got to pop to a separate window to actually read my
Hey, am I in
my comments for some obvious reason.
Hey, Don.
So anyway, here we are. I'm sorry about that, folks. Let's see here.
Hey, Don. Do you see me?
Dolores, we got that one. I see, Dom.
Do you hear me?
Yeah, I got you now. There you are.
All right. We made it happen?
Yeah, we have a little bit of a delay.
Oh, really?
Yeah, hang on just a second. Okay. Yeah, if you give me just a second here, I'm going to not pay any attention to this screen, and we're just going to be addressing ourselves to Dom. You still hear me, Dom?
I'm here.
Okay, that should take care of it right here. Before we bring Dom on, most of you, or I know a good chunk of you, actually follow Dom because I've been on his channel many times, and I do see comments, and I do see your names in his feed. Again, I'm going to state this out here. I've said it many, many, many times. I don't have someone on my show who I don't honestly feel is an honest, sincere, and legit person in all aspects. I'm not going to put somebody on who's going to promote or do things that I personally don't think are correct or giving you bad advice. I've watched a ton of Dom's videos. We've conversed for months now. He's a good guy, and I'm not just saying that. You know, Dom and Chris are probably Chris, the thrift shop hustler, are probably the two people that I would trust the most out of any of the folks that I've dealt with, talked to, or anything else. Nothing against any of the other folks. I've just talked with them much more. Wade's a great guy too. Nothing against Scott or any of the other guys at all. I've just talked to these guys way more than anybody else. You know, we've got each other's every contact information you could imagine. We have shared between each other. So I don't bring on somebody lightly. I honestly feel you should get some content, some good advice out of him as well too. And again, we do plan on doing a show together, me, Dom, and Chris. And it's going to be just on information and stuff. It's not going to be some glorified promotion for anything like that. You know, we don't have promoters. We don't have anybody promoting these. We don't have any sponsors. There may be sponsors in the future on my channel, but I would never, ever, ever do a sponsorship or promotion for anything if I didn't use the item and honestly, sincerely feel that it's good. Like Cellbrite. You guys know I've been talking about Cellbrite for, geez, a few months now. I'm still not recommending it because I'm still not to a point where I feel comfortable with it. I'm not going to, I don't care if they paid me to tell you it's good. I'm not going to do that unless I like the program. I don't want anything bad associated with what I preach and what I talk about here. This is, you know, part of my persona. This is who I am, and you know, I'm really legit. But without further ado, we've got all the beginnings out here. Dom, I've tried to get him on twice, as I said. And again, give some love to Dom. If you haven't subscribed to his channel, I really hopefully beg you to do it today because, again, he's had a lot of issues with these broadcasts. Without further ado, Dom, why don't you introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about yourself and why you're in this reselling market.
Hey, thanks a lot, Don. It is a real big relief to finally be on with you after some of the technical problems we had lately. Frazzled is a great way to describe what it felt like. Man, we've both been on the receiving end of these technical problems with these shows. But anyway, I appreciate the introduction. I really am truly honored to be on your show because I know that you have strict standards and you know, Don, I do admire what you're doing, and I do look up to you as a colleague in the reselling community, and I really appreciate your knowledge and everything. So thanks a lot for having me on.
Well, thanks for coming on. Let me just shout out one more thing. If I don't have somebody on the show, it doesn't mean that I don't respect them. It just means that I very rarely put somebody on, and I'm putting on the key people in my little circle here at this moment. So
yeah,
I'll back to Dom. Sorry.
Yep. Yeah, and I appreciate it. Well, my name is Dominic Carone. I go by the Primetime Treasure Hunter. I have the Primetime Treasure eBay store, and I do my reselling business technically part-time, but it's almost like a full-time job in terms of the amount of hours that I put into it. I do have another full-time job where I work as a board-certified neuropsychologist in a hospital, and I'm evaluating patients all day, children and adults with brain injuries and brain diseases. And you know, it's a busy life. I have a wife, 2 kids, ages 14 and 15. I've been involved in reselling technically since I was a teenager, when I used to go to outdoor flea markets and flip my comic books, comic book collections. We'd set up at like 6 o'clock in the morning on these big tables and sell our books. But in terms of eBay, I started it pretty soon after it came out in 2000 when I was in graduate school to make money on the side. We would go to a big outdoor flea market called the Swap Shop in South Florida. And this was before there was any eBay apps or anything. And we just, you know, learned by just developing an eye for things and taking things, bringing them home, putting them on auction. There was no buy it now or anything like that. And we made lots of mistakes, but we also learned a lot just from doing it, just from going out doing it and really honing your skills that way. You know, you couldn't check comps back then. There was just really no real way to do it. So then, you know, Don, a lot of the shows started coming out like American Pickers and Storage Wars and Pawn Stars and all that stuff. And even though a lot of that stuff is staged, if you watch that stuff, you learn a lot about just certain items and what to look for and what things are, you know, valuable, what types of signs and, you know, vintage items, paper items. I've always been into paper items just like you. That's one thing we have in common. And basically, after, you know, building up my career and stuff, I wanted to get back into the reselling thing. I've dabbled in it from time to time, but a few years ago, I started rebuilding my comic book collection. And in doing so, I started to learn, again, how much money there was in flipping comic books and comic collections. So I started to get back into it, then just started selling other stuff from garage sales and estate sales, and just went into it, like just dove into it. And then about, I don't know, maybe like 8 months or a year into it, I started diving into the social media side of it and started a YouTube channel, almost at 6,000 subs on there, and started a Facebook group, and I'm almost at 10,000 members in the Facebook group, and I'm also on Instagram as well. So not as active on there, but I still have a presence there. So that's the long and the short of it in terms of how I kind of came to be what I'm doing now. Oh, and I also run a medical website on the side and a medical blog, where it does make me money through advertising, and people pay me to put up like blog posts for their, their companies and business to advertise it. And so there's like, I have all these different forms of revenue and income coming in. So I'm always hustling.
I completely get that as well, because we do so much different things. We've got an art thing coming down the line really quick and soon here too, for those that are interested. So I've got my hands, he's got his hands all over the place. I was just talking about doing more than just one thing. So a good example here, you're talking to someone with a PhD as well too. I didn't go that route. I stopped at my master's because I just didn't like the clicks, the whole atmosphere of being required. Now you're not at the university. That's correct, right?
I'm not at Syracuse University, but I am at a state hospital that is nearby it.
Okay, because I know, like, I was going for American Cultural Studies, and I had an open offer to do my PhD through Bowling Green, the state university here. And after talking to the actual people who would be in charge of it and who would have to report to, their whole goal is just to write books, because they're required to write like so many books every few years to keep their tenure with the colleges. And I didn't like the whole bureaucracy of that aspect of it. Again, that's just my opinion. I would love to have the title of DR in front of my name, but that's the biggest plus.
Well, Don, one of the things that, kind of to segue off that a little bit, it's one of the reasons that I like your channel and watch you, is because you are scientific. You talk about data a lot and making decisions based on data, and you talk about making sure you have a baseline and doing everything scientifically correct. And I love that type of stuff. My job is it's a clinical job. I get paid 100% to see patients. I do not get paid to do any research or writing yet. I've taken those responsibilities on the side and have published papers in journals, and I've written 2 books, and all that I've done because I like to go towards the data and make decisions based on data and gather data and evidence. And so, we're both very kind of empirical in the way we think. And, I just thought I'd share that, because even though I don't have to do that and they don't make me do it, I do it just to do it, just because, I like to get the data, I like to get the evidence, and I like to read up on that type of stuff, both in terms of eBay and in terms of my other profession.
That's similar here. Now, I've got an IT degree as well too, so I delve into that as well, and I do stuff on Reddits and things like that that I don't have to do either. So I completely get that. Like, if we're pulling up paper items for us, and everybody who watches knows that I do paper. Dom does similar items as well too. He does more comics than I do. I don't buy as many comics as he does, because records are my niche. I do buy comics. I had a comic book collection. In fact, when my oldest son was born, I actually started to buy Spider-Man, and I had almost all of the Amazing Spider-Man, other than like, Amazing Fantasy or something. But
Right.
and we had bought all the way down. I think I was missing like 3 of the first, say, 30 issues. We ended up flipping them in like less than a year and a half, and we did very well. Let's just say that.
Did you have an Amazing Fantasy 15?
No, I did not.
Okay.
I've only had one of those in my life, and it was coverless. And the
Okay.
only reason I even got it, because it was coverless. I bought a box of coverless comic books. We still got like, I want to say I still sold it for $1,700, if I'm not mistaken. This was maybe 10 years ago. I haven't seen one even anywhere for sale other than like in a comic shop. And I still go to comic shops, mind you. So
Right.
that was, it was a nice plus. It was complete. It even had the centerfold section, or whatever you want to call it, in the middle section that's usually gone. The first folded section in the center is usually the one that's missing if a book's missing pages. At least that's my personal take on that.
Yeah.
That's what I run into. We had all the first, I had the Avengers. I wish I would have kept all that, but I'm not a big superhero fan with movies and stuff. I collected Batman as a child, and had the Dark Knight series been around, I would have been hooked. Unfortunately, it happened when I was younger, and that trilogy was one of my favorites. I mean, Why So Serious? You just can't knock that movie. It was the best Batman. I love Michael Keaton, but for this time, Michael Keaton's dated too much for me. you know, that was it. That was the
Well,
Batman in
well,
my
Don,
day.
now I don't know how many people in the chat are going to agree with me on this, okay? But I'm going to throw out my favorite Batman,
Uh-oh.
right? Adam West.
I do like Adam West. I have met him once at a show. We went to a comic convention and he was actually there. I like him because he does what cartoon? What's the cartoon he does it on? I
He,
should know this. Family Guy, is that what it is?
yeah. I think he was
He's the
doing that
mayor.
before he passed away.
Yeah, he was the mayor, I think, on that. We stopped
Yeah,
watching Family Guy, I mean, not
yeah.
too
I
long
think
ago.
Billy Smith agrees with me.
Billy Smith.
See, because it says 1974, Billy Smith, and so he must have grown up that same time frame when the 60s, 70s Batman show was on.
I grew up watching it because it was on reruns, and so
Yeah.
I've seen every single
Oh
episode.
yeah. Yeah.
I always hunt down original Batman. I've got the 2 sets of trade cards here right now. I've got both of the color backs of them. I got complete sets of them even. I always track down all the TV related Batman stuff. I liked the Batman from that. And I got something that you probably won't know. Did you know they all have singing careers?
That Batman had like Adam West did.
Adam West sings.
I,
Burt Ward sings.
I,
The guy who plays the Riddler sings. Meredith, or I can't think of Burgess Meredith sings.
yeah.
I've got all of their records, so I've
Yeah.
got a video.
Yeah.
Did you know
Cesar
that?
Romero, Frank Gorshin.
Frank Gorshin sings the Riddler, and in fact, in my Patreon group, I actually included that on a list of 45s to look for. Type in the Riddler if you get a chance, and Gorshin, and you're going to hear him doing a song that actually hit the airwaves as a novelty.
Yeah.
Every cast member on the original Batman TV show had a record out, a singing record.
Yes. Yeah. Now I did know about the Riddler, the 45 one you were talking about.
Yeah, I got one here. That's the reason I brought it up the other day.
Yeah, that's awesome. Now a lot of people don't know this. We won't get too far into it, but just we'll say it in PG terms. But Adam West, I don't know how many people know Adam West had a little adult film career going on before.
Yeah, I knew that too. Yeah. Another one was oh shoot, no, I'm not going to remember his name. He played Hogan on Hogan's Heroes. In fact, he was murdered over it. I can't think of his name. Oh, well, we'll move off that subject. I've totally lost for his name. It's a show I used to watch with my father, but Hogan's Heroes, all those old 60s shows, collectibles, as you should know, sell awesomely well. Every one of those type of items. Well, let's get into some questions because, we brought you on here. I've got some questions that I have come up with, and I've got a few that were sent to me as well. I know we've talked about, you've actually answered the first one, which was basically what brought you down this road here on reselling. I might have a longer reseller record than you, only because I've been doing it since I was like 7. You may have as well too. I know most of your.
No, not that early.
Yeah, for me, I used to do drawings and stuff, and then my mom used to go to garage sales. So we've got into that one here. I know you're in the comic books. I've seen enough of your videos and comments. I know you go to shows with your kids as well. So, which I do stuff with my kids to the shows. My youngest goes with us to military shows and things like that. It's usually a buying trip is what it is. So I do that as well. My biggest question here, knowing, your history and knowing, what you do on the side. Well, I guess eBay is your side and your main business is your profession.
Right.
Where do you see yourself in 5 years? Do you plan on staying with the medical field? Obviously, you've got money invested into it. So let's say your eBay business starts to rock and you've just found some bomb niche and you've cross-listed. I mean, are you still going to be, do you want it a dual thing? Are you still wanting to be in the medical profession, or has the reselling bug taken off? Because I know it has in you. I can see in watching your videos that you're gung-ho on it.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, I have a lot of passion for it. I mean, I like what I do for my career, of course, but it's not as fun as as this, because this is my own thing that I kind of created and stuff. So there's always a lot of enjoyment and pleasure out of doing that. Emotionally, would I love to just do this all the time? Absolutely, I would. But in terms of logic, it doesn't make sense for me to just right now jump into, or in 5 years do this full time. I've been at my current job 15 years. It's a state position, and after being there for 25 to 30 years, you could retire. So I'm like halfway there. I don't have to pay into my retirement anymore. I've got a great salary, a base salary, regardless of how many patients I see, I make that salary. So, you know, it just doesn't make sense to just throw all that away. And my wife reminds me, having traveled all over the country to support me to get my doctoral degree, that if I give it up, she's going to kill me. So, you know, Mrs. Primetime isn't going to put up with that. We've talked about that before. I mentioned it. She's like, no, absolutely not. You're not doing that. So, what it basically boils down to is I am really trying, Don, to come up with the most efficient ways to operate my business, so that I do not waste time and that I just maximize the minutes and opportunities. I will take days off strategically. I have a lot of vacation days built up. And I will just go out, for example, and source or do something focused on my business. I plan to keep growing the social media angle of it. And just, you know, like the first year with YouTube, I mean, I was pumping up videos like crazy, and I'm backing off that a little bit now so I can focus more on, you know, on listing things. So it's just a balance. You've got to continually adjust to it. But what I would like to do, Don, I do when I do retire at 55 or 60, then I plan on this just being a full-time thing.
I get that. I get
Yeah.
that. I mean, I just at the 50 mark, so you know, I completely get that. You know, for me these days, like I could go into a field right now. I could probably take an IT job. I could 100% get a DM job in a restaurant chain, you know, as a district manager running 5, 10 stores or whatever they may have. I don't care anymore from my standpoint. If I made twice what I am making now, I still wouldn't do it. I completely get you and the fact that you've been doing it for 15 years. So I get that fully. I did foods for 20 years. I would never do it again. I don't care how much they paid me for. Quality of life. I know you love what you're doing too, and you like your profession too. So this is just me. I'm not speaking for Dom. So for those of you watching here, I would never give up what I'm doing now for anything else. Maybe an art job, making my own salary, you know, picking what I want to get paid, but that's never going to happen. So, you know, I'm in a spot where I like it, and it sounds like Dom is too. You know, I know there's a lot of people that do part-time eBay. Dom's a perfect example. You're going to retire sometime, and you have a business if you started off early enough. So, you know, I've got pensions as well, just like Dom said. The wife and I both have pensions from Walt Disney World. We worked there for 10 plus years. You know, we still talk to people there almost on a daily. Well, actually, it is a daily basis. As I say, I just talked to somebody like 20 minutes ago before I went online from Disney. So, you know, it's good to keep contacts even from 20 years ago. I still get Disney items mailed to my house from people who work there who buy it in bulk. So anyway, let's move on to some more questions here.
There was an interesting question in there from Elise. She said, does anyone in your profession know what you're doing? And here's the funny thing. They have no clue.
They probably don't even go on YouTube or
No, they
anything
have
else.
no idea.
Like
And the
that.
funny thing about it is, like, and I hesitate to say this because I don't want to come across as braggy, but like I have a
You're going to
natural.
get that comment anyway, Dom, because I get it no matter what all the
Yeah,
time.
I know. But in my profession, I have a national presence in my profession. Like that's why I was in Chicago, because I'm on the board of directors for the American Academy of Clinical Neuropsychology, and I've written 2 books, and one of my books is used all over the country and in other countries for teaching people in my profession. And if they knew that I'm the primetime treasure hunter, they'd be like, it's like it's this total alter ego thing. Like they have absolutely no idea. It's funny because when I went to Chicago, right, I get off the airport to go to this conference. The next day is the board of directors meeting. I get off the airport. I see a couple of neuropsychologists that I know around and stuff. And normally I'd be schmoozing with them and everything. And I'm sitting there on the phone calling Craigslist Hunter to pick me up at the airport to go do a show with him all day. And it's just like, I'm sitting there, I'm like, man, my life has changed so much. It's crazy.
You know, I'm not a big social person these days. And, you know, anybody who sees me knows that or knows me really personally. The first couple times someone says, hey, I know you. And I'm like, no, you don't, you know, and you try to, you know, because I'm not out looking to, you know, be, you know, some big famous star or something. I just do what I like to do. And like you like talking about the stuff too. So I love talking about what I do. As a person who used to give the meetings for the restaurants or as a regional and all that, I used to have to talk to all these people about what we do. And that's the aspect that I missed that I guess YouTube fills in for me. So I know you're technical as well as what we were saying before. So for me, I'm not going to push out the news, and I'm sure you're the same way, unless it's bona fide information. That baseline is so important. And I see 90% of the people on YouTube talking about doing this is going to increase, doing this is going to do this for you, with no, basis or proof in any way, shape, or form that it does anything for you. The empirical evidence is what I want. I want a baseline to compare to. You can't just do a whole bunch of sales and say, well, look, it's proof. Now, the offers to sales, we know it's going to sell something, because a lot of the offers on stuff like that, they don't want to pay that much for it. And I know people are saying, you're wrong, Don, don't do this, you're just giving it away. If something's been up for 2 years and there's been 5 watches on it for 2 years, these people aren't waiting for you to mark it down so they can buy it and then turn around and resell it. No one's going to hang on to it for 2 years unless they're collecting it. So I don't worry about any of that kind of stuff on it personally.
Right.
Let's pop down to a couple more questions here. Now, would I be wrong in saying that comic books are 100% your favorite category?
Yeah, it definitely is. If you want to be more general with it, technically comics is paper. So, but I love anything paper. But yeah, absolutely comic books. I mean, it brings me back to when I was a kid, and I would sit there for hours in my room with my comic book collection, and I would have fun taking the books and putting them in the bag and the boards and organizing them and putting them in alphabetical order, and setting them all up. And that's what you have to do when you buy these collections. Sometimes if you want to piece them out and stuff, you've got to have the patience. That's why most people won't do comics, is because you buy enough of them, you could get overwhelmed like that, and you don't know what to do, especially if it's not your area. If you don't like it, it's not going to be fun. So
yeah, if you're just buying random big bulk lots,
right.
just like any other field, like 90% of them aren't going to be worth much at all.
Oh, right.
Especially the newer ones. Of course, as well as I do, like first apps and things like that are always like, I think you still have the Punisher blow up
right.
of the Punisher.
And this one here, this is a good example, Don. I bought a collection. I was going through it recently. There were a bunch of Incredible Hulks, and so I was going through them, and I pulled this one out. And this is Incredible Hulk 271. It's the first full comic book appearance of Rocket Raccoon. So this book, in the condition that it's in, is worth about 170, 175, and I wound up getting it for 15 cents. But the only way I got it for 15 cents was because I bought out big bulk lots. So I take this one, I sell it. I'm selling it with the one that comes after this, which is the second appearance of Rocket Raccoon from Guardians of the Galaxy, and for $199.99. And then the rest of those Hulks I have in a smaller lot, like 20 of them, for $29.99, and that's how I do it.
We do the same thing. Everything we can buy in bulk. If I can buy 5,000 records, I can get my cost down to like 2 cents a disc at the most. If I buy comic books, I'm buying a storage locker full, or every one they have at the sale if I can get into it, or if it's like a Craigslist ad or something, which I don't do too many of. I want to buy them all as cheap as I can. I bulk them out if I have to at the end. I'll do 100 random comic books, not really random, they'll all be shown. I don't do any of those mystery boxes. Of course, those are all banned from eBay.
Right.
I know they still do them like mad in comics. That's the one section, for whatever reason, eBay is not able to control those random one graded comic included, lots. And there's thousands of them on eBay. I just don't think they want to lose the money, even though, they're losing money because people are able to not have to individually list them. They can just keep listing the same listing, which is sad. That's one of the areas that always drove me nuts, that they do that in here. I don't know your take on that, but mine, I don't think any random, because it's a banned thing. It's like it's listed as chance.
I don't do anything like that either, for the reasons that you described. I like everything. If
I value my account.
Yeah, if I'm going to do a mystery box or anything like that, the only way I do that is if I do it through social media, if I'm doing like a giveaway or something like that, but not on selling it on eBay. I don't do that.
Yeah, definitely the same thing. Another question here. What area do you wish you did know? I mean, a lot of people have areas that they're niches in and they're great in it. People ask me all the time, and they want to do this category or that category. It's hard to show them, but what category do you wish you knew the most in that you don't have the knowledge in now?
I wish, Don, I knew more about automotive parts. Those sell very well on eBay if you know what you're doing. And, It's
You
the
got to
reason
watch
why.
out on auto parts though, because in some states you need a dismantler license, which costs some big money. Just FYI, for those of you who are thinking about that, because I know there's probably half the country has a ruling or law that says you have to have a specific license to tear apart stuff. I don't know if you know that or not,
I
but
did not know that. That's interesting.
yeah, yeah.
I'll look into that. But I wish I knew more about it. See, when I grew up, my dad, my dad's a nice guy, but when he had a problem with the car, it wasn't like he took me outside. I don't say anything bad about him. I'm just saying it's just his way. He wasn't going to go out and say, "Hey, let's tinker with the car and let me show you what this part is and what that part is." He was a take it to the shop guy, and that was it.
Oh,
So I never got to learn those parts. So I sell some automotive things here and there, but I wish I knew more about it so I could just look at something and say, oh yeah, that piece is that, it goes with that, I should pick that up. So I wish I had more
we're
knowledge about that.
car parts are great, as you say as well too. We're near Motor City, so I get car parts wholesale constantly. So one of my other stores that we have a ton of stuff in, a lot of it is car parts. When I go to Detroit, I'm picking up records at one stop, car parts at the second stop. That's like a key category living near Motor City.
Yep.
You don't have to know everything. You just have to know enough to get into the market to figure out. I can't ID most of, I mean, I know if it's an idler arm or if it's a shifter or whatever else it is, but I couldn't tell you what car most of that stuff comes on. Luckily, when I go
Go
ahead,
ahead.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead. No,
I
it's
was
all
just
right.
gonna say, luckily, when I get them, I have item numbers. I'm buying them wholesale from the manufacturer, and of course, I'm ungated to sell those because of that on Amazon, so I can Amazon those as well too. That's an FBA item, just FYI. I mean, the
Yeah.
weight's the only issue you have concern. It better be an expensive piece if it weighs a lot for storage and size wise. So I don't do fenders or anything like that. We have done some NOS fenders in the past, but they were local pickups in the general area, and luckily we sold the 7 we bought. We spent some money on them, but we made some money too. So anyway,
Yeah.
car parts are great. You picked a good one there to think about. That is good, but again, dismantler license for some states, you need to have one to be able to do this. We know people who break them down in their yards, and it's a no-no in some city ordinances too. You can't have a non-running car in your driveway in some areas. Here you can't. I can't have a broken down car in the driveway. Somebody would tow it without, I'd show up and it'd be gone. So
Hey, Don,
anyway,
I'll give you one more though. And I know,
shoot.
because I've seen Chris talk about this as well. Glassware. Now it's not, I do glassware. Like I love, Don, I love, one of my favorite things to sell is vintage bottles. I
Oh, I
love
love bottles.
love
I've
it.
got hundreds and hundreds of
Right.
bottles.
But there's certain glassware, like the type of glassware, for example, like I'll sit down, another show I like to watch is Antiques Roadshow. And someone will bring on a piece of glass, like a vase or something, and they'll
Just
get it
don't pay attention to their prices, though.
well, that's the thing. Like I see that they'll praise it at like 15 grand or something. And I'm like, if I would have seen that at a estate sale, I would not have known. And that stuff drives me crazy when they put glassware on Antiques Roadshow and they put these crazy prices on it. So I'm like, man, I wish I could look at it like they are and understand what they're seeing. And so
I've watched that show for years. The prices they give you are for like a Sotheby's high-end auction
yeah,
format. They're not
right.
giving you prices for, it wouldn't even be a heritage auction that sells for that price. Some of the same pieces I've seen or had, and I'm like, there's no freaking way that's worth $5,000 in the real world. But again, high-end auctions draw high-end people that don't want to go to these low-end places because frankly, they feel they're too good to go to the normal sources. They'll pay a broker to bid for them, even if it costs them an extra 10 grand, because they don't want to deal with the peons, I guess you could say. At least that's my take on it. But
right.
yeah, I've seen enough of that. Glassware. Now I do know enough on glassware to be a trouble for other people. My wife collected depression glass for a long time, and we've bought early Federal and the whole works. We've delved in jadeite and jadeware and all that stuff for many years. I gave it up because of the space that it takes up on shelves, as well as the fragileness of some of it.
Yeah.
We broke some pieces here and there, and I fell into the paper industry, I guess you could say. So for us, why would I want to have, again, there's good money in glass. I just picked a certain route. We did sell it for a long time and did fairly well. I picked a route where I can fit more stuff in the same space. And, I may sell, for a little less than a few of the glass pieces, but I sell so much of it that it's no comparison. I would do the paper any day. Glass is good though. I know people that just do glass and
Right.
pottery and hard goods like that and make a killing at it. You know,
Right.
it depends on, in my opinion, to have a glass one, you have to have a huge area if you're going to do a ton of glass. And have everything set up. You need a big table to be able to unroll the wrap and all the stuff, and you have to look into the box issues and all that kind of stuff. Again,
Right.
it's a good, honest to God, great market for majority of people. I don't have the space. And looking at your room there, I don't know how much space you'd have.
Not a ton.
You
Well,
pardon me?
I just bought a huge storage shed.
I
And
saw I saw that.
I have a whole video on that. I'm moving a lot of stuff into there, so that's helping a ton.
Yeah, we've already got my father's he used to have a big shop, did cabinetry and carpentry and upholstery and stuff like that, and that's full. So we're literally at the point where, if we do much more else, once we fully cross list, we'll probably get a big warehouse and stuff, and we might start to do pallets as well too. I'll just hire a couple people just on a pallet line, and they'll do pallet listings and stuff, and we'll move everything over to a building probably at some point, the way it's looking.
I would love to see what your warehouse looks like, Don.
Well, the warehouse is I've got similar shelves to these. I worked at the restaurants for a long time, and I've got Metromax shelving, which they've got liners on them. They've got like a plastic piece that goes on them. They're like industrial shelving that can hold like thousands of pounds, and that's what I use for it, because I got them for nothing when we remodeled several of the restaurants I've been in. I kept them all. And I had them in a garage, and then we had them in storage. And I've got neon lights from the restaurants I work still. Big, huge. I've got a nice Einstein Brothers Bagels neon light that's double-sided. I mean, it's this thing cost the company, I want to say they said it was $4,700 to have this thing custom made. And there's a bunch of them, but it was scrapped. I put 3 signs together to get one, and we had all this stuff in storage, and so thank goodness I saved a lot, because I've got meat slicers, industrial meat slicers that cost like $2,000 sitting here, and stuff like that I haven't used in God knows how long. I've got restaurant and hotel supply stuff, but I go in with some other people, and we buy out businesses that go under, and each of us will take certain aspects of the business. That's about the only other thing I team up with other people, other than buying like boxes. I'll buy a pallet of boxes with 2 other people, and then we split it in thirds, and then we're not each holding a freaking pallet of boxes. But it cuts my cost down in half of anywhere else. It'll beat Walmart's price, and Walmart's the best box price you can get. But the only other way I can get it cheaper from a box manufacturer is buying a pallet. So anyway, let's get to some more questions. I know we've kind of got off topic here. So biggest sale is one of the questions everybody has asked me. I had somebody ask the other day, actually, in the feed before we didn't get you on. So what is your biggest all-time sale on eBay? Now, we're not gonna touch the real world. We're just talking about eBay here.
Yeah, I don't know how impressive it'll be to people, because it's not like I've made like a big like $1,000 sale or anything. I mean, kind of close. Best one was around winter time last year. What happened was I advertise on Craigslist that I'm looking for to do partial estate clear outs, and guy contacted me. He worked for Got Junk. He was working for them at the time, and he was basically going in and he was doing clear outs, and he would take whatever he thought was valuable, he'd throw it in this trailer. So eventually accumulated so much stuff that his girlfriend said, you've got to get stuff out of here. And so he contacted me, and it took a while to meet up, but we finally met up, and he says, look, I'm not really looking to make a lot of money off this stuff. I want to just clear it out. So go through, see what you want. But I walk in, the first thing I see is this big tub, one of those big plastic tubs. And it says on the front of it, Magic the Gathering.
Oh, geez.
I said, you got to be kidding me. So
it was all full of Magic the Gathering?
Original Magic the Gathering. Like 1995, 1994, original sets in sealed or partially sealed boxes.
Before you go any farther, tell them what a high dollar Magic Gathering single card can go for, so they know the value. A lot of people out there may not know what Magic the Gathering is.
Yeah, it's a fantasy role-playing game where you collect all these different cards, and you go on these different adventures with, there's expandable adventures and stuff and stories, and certain cards give your character certain powers, and there's certain cards that are more rare than others, and some ones that will make your pack more powerful so that you could win the game. So, but certain special cards, older cards from older series, I mean, could go for thousands of dollars. I mean, you may
10,000 I've
yeah,
seen cards over.
yeah,
Even I've
yeah,
seen one for like 24,000, one
yeah.
single card.
Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, so I didn't have anything like that, but one of the sets that I found, and off the top of my head, I'm struggling to remember exactly which one it was, but it was one from like 94, 95. I bought everything that day. I bought for $50. It's crazy. So I put this one set online, this one early Magic the Gathering set, and didn't take long, sold for 800.
That's pretty
So,
good.
and that was
That's
just
very
one box. And then I had another one, I put it up, it was 200, and another one 200. And before long, like these all added up to like $3,000-4,000 of Magic the Gathering cards, and I only spent $50 on the cards plus a whole truckload of other things that I got that day. So
And I tell people the same thing. You're buying in bulk too. Whatever I do, probably 90% of everything I buy is in mass quantity bulk.
yep, yep,
No exaggeration, like
yep,
90% of everything. If I
right,
go to a picker, I'm walking off with 200 items for $1 a piece or 200
right,
items for whatever. It's
right,
almost nothing. And
right,
most of what you or I or people that do these collectibles, most people think it's junk. And there's less and less people that value it as much as some of the older folks, as time goes on. So they're getting harder to find and people are dumping them off in places. I found the other day probably around 2000 1920s and 30s 78 records sitting on the side of the road. This is like the fourth time in probably 3 years I found it. I picked them all up. I sat there and parked in the middle of it wasn't in the middle of the road, but I stopped on a moving highway, not highway, but it was a 4-lane road with a turning lane. I put my hazard lights on and I loaded that entire thing from this guy's garbage pile into my van. I mean, you're talking thousands of records for
right.
nothing. They didn't think a thing of these things. They probably looked up and didn't recognize any of the names. They probably called some local shop. None of the record stores around here will take 78s like that. They won't take any 78s unless they're like rock and roll, soul 78s, rockabilly, stuff like that. That's all the shops will own because they got to look up each one and they can't sell any of those locally. Every one of those, the 1920s and 30s 78s got to be sold, over the net because there isn't enough collectors to make any money locally on that kind of stuff. So I don't garbage dig or anything else like that. But when I see something like that on the side of the road, it would have been worth paying a ticket to get a ticket, just to get that stuff on the side of the road. So, and that,
Yeah, you're right. And a lot of that old music, people don't realize some of the value in it. One great example, Don, would be like 8-track tape. Like people think, oh, no one listens to 8-track, they're worthless. Well, especially if it has that little groove on the top left and it's a quadraphonic 8-track tape, those things could go,
quadraphonic anything.
oh my God. I mean, those things go for good money.
Yeah, I sell. I'll wait and get a bunch of like Beatles 70 or 8-tracks, and I'll put those in a lot. Like Jimi Hendrix, you might sell for 50 or 60 on its own. Some of the classicals even sell. And as you said, quadraphonic, and that goes for LP records too.
Yep,
Quadraphonic records sell.
yep,
If the record's worth $10 as a non-quad,
yep.
it's going to sell for 30 or so as a quad. It could be the exact same record. Records are easier to tell, I know, than 78s because usually, or then I keep saying 78s, than the 8-tracks. A record that's quad usually has a gold border around the record on the outside on the cover. Now, 70 or the 8-tracks I see, sometimes it doesn't say anywhere except a little tiny thing next to quad, like Quad SS or something like that. That's what I
Right.
notice. But I do buy them in bulk because a lot of the 80s hair bands, that's when, they were going out. So if you get some of those, like some of the last few, just like the last 17 Star Wars figures are worth a ton of money. When they're going out and they're phasing them out, they're not making them, there's fewer of those. We sold Paranoid, like an original Paranoid Black Sabbath, for like $127. And it had the sleeve, the cardboard case, luckily. I know that adds a lot to the value on 8-tracks.
Yeah.
The other thing too that I noticed that sells really well on 8-tracks, and I've had 2 or 3 of them. It's a adapter where you can plug it into the 8-track and you can actually play a regular cassette off of it. I don't know if you've seen those.
Yeah.
Those are like $40 a piece. I usually pick them up for $1 or $2 in an electronics bin somewhere.
Right.
Nobody thinks anything of those.
Yep. People give stuff away sometimes, Don. I mean, I literally had a situation once where I was at this guy's garage sale and he was like this free spirit guy. He was this motorcyclist guy, and he's like, I'm just gonna leave. He goes, I'm gonna just take my Harley and I'm just gonna cruise the country and I'm just gonna, ride the roads. And he was giving his stuff away. So he said, fill a bag for like a big bag, fill a bag for $1. It was crazy. I brought my wife, brought my kids. We were loaded up in this place. Then the guy starts coming through. I literally had, wait till you see this, Don. This guy starts sprinkling stuff in our bags from overhead, and he sprinkles in 3 of these. Wait till you see this. 3 of these sealed
Oh, jeez.
in the bag, the original Kiss pencils. And I
Are
thought
those
you'd
the
like
70s or are those the late 80s, 90s?
no. This is the 78. Okay. These pencils, if they're sealed, the 4-pack, they sell for $300. I have it right now in my store for $299.99, and it will sell for close to that price. And
I wouldn't doubt it.
I have 3 of them, and the guy just sprinkled them into my bag.
We look for all the old rock stuff from the 80s. Hairband stuff goes incredibly well no matter what it is, and I don't care what it is. Sheet music, books, paperbacks, even the magazines sell, like Circus. I sold some Circus. I just sold one with Bon Jovi on the cover the other day. Went for like $60. And these aren't just signed, these are just regular everyday magazines that they used to, just you go down the store. I used to have a subscription to Circus, so I know, that these are still good items. Any of those old 70s stuff, like tickets, the concert shirts, Kiss especially. I've got to see them in person a couple of times, so I have a somewhat affiliation with Kiss, and we've waited outside of their hotel once before when they were here in town, and we actually got to see them and talk with them and stuff, which was kind of neat. Somebody else told us where they were staying, and back in the day when I had hair down to the waist and I was partying and going to concerts and stuff. I haven't done that in years. So I mean 20, how old are my kids? Like 25 years since I've been to anything like that. So we've went to some personal concerts, like a jazz show or something. But if you like heavy metal, or if you like even rock and roll, I tell people this, but they don't believe me. But if you go to a classical orchestra concert, it's just like going to a rock concert in my book, because they're just blaring it and banging on the drums. I mean, it's just awesome. Like Night on Bald Mountain at the end, if you know what that is. That's some it just, when they're blaring that and it's loud and you're in person and it's rattling, you've got the acoustics. I'm sorry, but that's just as big and exciting as a rock and roll. I've seen the Rolling Stones at the Gator Bowl in Jackson. Shoot, what is it? In Florida, Jacksonville, I think it was.
Yeah.
Pretty sure it was Jacksonville at the Gator Bowl there. And, there was 80,000 people there. It was better to go to the orchestra because you could hear everything. It was outside there. And if you ever go to an outside concert, when the wind blows or it's windy, the sound, goes in and out somewhat because of the way, the waves go up from the sound. But anyway, let's pop back to a few more questions here. Your take on good till canceled change. Now, everybody's got their own take on this. I'm going to just shoot up mine real quick. I'm fine with the good till canceled because I've changed with eBay, and we're just going for the Google search. Now, everybody has their own take on it. There's no right or wrong answer. There's what works for you. So what's your take on the change of getting rid of the other options we had now forcing us to automatically relist on good till canceled?
I'm like you, Don. I feel that largely what we've got to do in these situations is adapt to them. If you don't adapt to the changing situations, you're going to fall behind, and you're not going to succeed. Obviously, if there's a change that is suggested by eBay that's just so egregious and everyone just can't stand it and hate it, there's going to be an uproar, and eBay might change it. But that's rare. They usually don't do that. So with the whole good to cancel, if I have an item that I just I look at it and I feel like, what, this thing just isn't going to sell. I might take it off and just end it so it doesn't relist. But that's rare. Like most of the items that I put up, Don, are like yours. They're ones that I've done my research on, and I'm pretty confident they are eventually going to sell. One thing that I have done, though, is, and this kind of it dovetails with first class shipping, having regional rates associated with it, and, the rates varying depending on where it's going, is I have set minimums in terms of like the lowest I'm willing to sell something for. So I won't go personally for me, and I might up this over time. I personally won't sell anything anymore for less than $9.99. I've like at least got to get that out of it, and I try to have items that are obviously much more than that to make money. But well, once in a while, that's the thing, Don, though, when you're buying things in bulk lots, unless you want to if you're not going to always combine everything together, you have like some straggler pieces, I'll put them up for something like that, because I do have some customers who come to my page and they want to, get an item that's like a lower priced item. And, you never know. And that person might come back and buy something that's more expensive or couple it. with something else and make a bundle purchase. But so basically I've adjusted to it. I've just kind of let it roll into the next cycle, and then I kind of take a look at it and I figure out what I want to do. Do I want to lower the price? Do I want to put a promotion on it? But I haven't. It really. I said when it came out, Don, I said that you could look at it as good and bad. I mean, one of the things that could be good about it is that if people are getting upset that, oh, I'm going to be hit with a lot of fees, well, you know what? You're going to have to be more discerning with the items that you pick up, so you get things that sell faster or that are more competitive. So it could be a good thing, and that could be good for eBay too, because the less that the market is covered with junk, the better it is for everybody. So that's kind of how I've rationalized it.
Well, that's a good take on it. For like everybody should have I'm not going to sell something below a certain point. And I get Dom's point. Dom's a one-man show on this. I can go down a little, or I go down to $7.99 just because I can have an employee list 20 plus items in an hour.
Yeah.
So $7.99, no big deal. I've said this before. We sell like maybe 6 or 7 postcards right now every single day of the week, day in and day out, all year round. There's no stopping it whatsoever. Some days I sell 20 or 30 of them. And most of the time, the lowest thing I ever sell on there is something maybe for $6 on an offer, maybe and again, it's good money because I've got like on a card that I'm listing for $7.99, I probably have a quarter into it if I'm lucky.
Yeah.
So it's all philosophy. And I guess it has to be what works for you. Now, me and Dom have the ability. He's got income coming in. He doesn't worry. I don't worry about it. I can set stuff up and put them online. If it doesn't sell for 2 or 3 years, I'm not still worried about it. And I've talked about some of the philosophy as well on this too, because a lot of people, what I see is they'll list something once, it doesn't sell, they'll relist it a second time, and then when it doesn't sell the second time, they get rid of it. They think it's no good. It's not going to sell. I wasted my time. And then I see them dumped in big lots, or I find like people who are selling locally here, they'll sit there and put them at the local live auctions. So whenever I go, and I've talked about this, and I addressed this a little more on Patreon to today's video, but that literally, that's what people do. That's a philosophy people got to break the habit of. I'll let it ride. We sell stuff constantly that's been up for a long period of time. And I never worry. You're going to hit a point with the amount of items you have up there where you're going to sell stuff every day, and you're going to have this set income coming in, and the fees you're paying, even for, I've got like, I think there's 24,000, maybe 25,000 items in the store I share with you. The fees I pay are like zip compared to what we bring in. So the fees don't mean anything to me. It's when people say, well, you're paying all that money to list. I pay, it's like 2 cents for the first 10,000 listings, and that's 5 cents for everyone past that. And I still get free ones once in a while. You got to spend money to make money, and you know that darn well as much as I do on that one there. So
I totally agree. And hey, while we're talking price, I've always wanted to tell you this, but I never had a chance to, because I was thinking of doing a video about this, and then I was watching you one day, and you're the only person that ever said this. And I said, if it was going to be someone independent of me that said it's going to be either Don or someone like Chris or something. But you're talking about, crack me up, that sometimes you'll raise the price on your items instead of lowering them. And
yeah, and then they'll sell like right away.
I do the same thing.
Yeah. And people thought I was crazy. I've been doing that for like 10 years.
Yeah.
Now, you got to have a philosophy. You can't just raise the price on every single item and
Right.
hope it sells. Now, it's usually going to be a rare item that there's only 1 or 2 up, and that the price is fluctuating in drastic means. Like I did that not too long ago on a printer's card, and I had it up for, I think, $299. I raised it to $450, and we sold it for $375 like 2 hours after I raised the price.
Right.
So I got more than I would have gotten, and it had been running for, I don't know, maybe it was up for like 4 months before, and we ended up taking more than I would have either way.
Yeah. Another situation I'll do it is I'll have an item. I know it's hot. I know it's an amazing item. Like, I'll give you an example. Like, let's say it's something like this, right? I put it up for $174.99, and maybe each week I lower it maybe $5, right? And so at the end it's at like $154.99, and I'll have 15 watchers on it, and they'll all think that, and they'll throw me all these low balls at the end. They'll offer me like $99.99 or something, and then it doesn't sell. Well, I know they really want it. I know the sales history on the item. And so then I will relist it, and I'll bump it back up to $174.99, and someone will come in and buy it. Because I feel essentially what they're doing is they're playing a game of chicken with me on the item. And, a lot of them think that, the seller, a lot of people think, oh, the seller's desperate, he really needs the cash, and it's kind of there's nonverbal communication that goes on with this stuff, and so it's kind of my way of saying, listen, I could sit on the item. I'll wait on the item. I don't care. Like you, Don, I'll wait a year. I'll wait 3 months. I don't care. And then someone eventually breaks and buys it for the higher price.
Yeah, I can see stuff like that too. Um, there's a philosophy for all of what we do on this, and some things work in some categories, some things, you know, work in other categories. I know this, what we're talking about, these philosophies. I would never do this in clothing, books, or, you know, like pallet returns or any of that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
The collectibles field is its own separate
absolutely.
world,
Yeah,
totally separate from what everybody else sells if you're not into collectibles. Would you not
you're right.
agree?
Absolutely. Yeah, and that's the thing you're so right about, Don. And I heard you talk about this before. Is what collectibles is that there's no season for it. It's all
There
year.
is none.
Yeah, and that's the great thing about it. So if you're just in clothes,
You're
go.
locked into seasonal sales, or you have to switch up your inventory to switch. You know, I know winter coats sell all year round, but you're not going to sell 100 winter coats in, you know, July, the first week in July. It's just not going to happen. There's just not enough people that would
Yeah.
do it. So you have to have summer. We did summer rollouts and then some seasonal as well too when we did clothing. There's no other way to do it. And then it's the space that it takes up.
Yeah.
I was so relieved to dump off the last of my clothing. You can't believe it. It was like one of those scenes you see in the movies with everybody digging up, trying to see what they can get out of the box. We just gave it all away to all the
Right.
employees. I was
Right.
going to
Now,
sell it,
right.
but
Now hold on, Don. I know you don't do clothes, but I got to ask you if you would have done this, because I purchased this the other day. I do clothes, not crazy on the clothes, but I do it. It's funny. I'm driving back home, trying to get home at a certain time, and there's a garage sale that I see
you
on the
never get home on time because I never get home when I say I'm
no,
going to be.
no. And I literally drive past it and I tell myself, I'm not going to stop off. I'm not going to stop off. I
As
get
you
to the next
turn,
corner, I turn around. Right. So I go up, and there's something about it just felt like I had to go see it. And it turns out that it was the third day, actually it was like the last day of the sale that had been going on for weeks. And I had missed it because I was away for vacation and then I was on this business trip. So it was the last day. So she was really like dealing on prices. And it turns out it was her brother's stuff. Her brother had passed away. He was a biker, and she had 3 pairs of vintage leather Harley chaps.
I would have
And
bought them.
oh my
I
God.
buy leather.
Yeah, it was leather, and I got all 3 chaps for $25.
I would have bought
Just
them.
one of those chaps could go for about 200 if you got the right chap. So
Conditioned and right chap. Yeah, I
yeah,
do Harley. I've ridden on a Harley for, you know, a while. I was a motorcyclist, so I do love leather. I've got 3 leather
right.
jackets I just bought. So
Yeah.
I always buy leather jackets. Right
Okay.
now in house, I've got about 70 leather jackets right
Oh
now.
wow. Okay.
Most all of them will fit me. I don't usually buy a leather jacket unless I can wear it.
Right.
I love the vintage. Most of what I wear jacket wise is vintage. If anybody knows the plush velour jacket I wear, that's from the 60s. I wear a 62 or 63 Cafe Racer. If you know what that is, that's a very nice, it's a asymmetrical zippered jacket that fits really tight. I love buckles on jackets that are in the back tail. I love zippers on the sleeves. I love the padded elbows. I buy vintage leather is one of the things that I love. Even if I don't sell them, I buy them. Everybody
Yeah.
in the house wears the same basic size. So my sons wear my jackets, though there's one that's favorite that everybody wants to wear. That's the only one we ever fight over. And literally out of 70 jackets, everybody likes the same one, which is my Cafe Racer. But I would buy Harley anything. I don't mess with Harley t-shirts unless it's a 3D emblem. Now, if you don't know what that is, anybody watching who does clothing, if you don't know what a Harley 3D emblem is, you darn well better look it
Yeah.
up right now, because the
Yeah.
last 3D emblem we sold, we got $375 for
Yeah.
the 69-cent t-shirt that we bought. See,
Yeah.
I saved my mannequins because I will still do concert shirts, Harley 3D emblems. There's a few other shirts that we still will buy, but they're all related to like biker or rock music kind of things, because that stuff always sells for us and I don't have to hold on to it. Harley 3D emblem shirt will be gone the first day you put it up if you want to get rid of it. Same with any Raglan concert shirt from the 70s or 80s will be gone immediately. I don't care what prices you put on it. Someone's going to want to buy it. You know, we've sold t-shirts for, you know, $800, $900, $1,000, you know, a few years back when we were heavy into them. I don't look for them as much anymore because I can get a little piece of paper for $1,000 nowadays. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
It's just not worth it. Let's hop back to a few more questions here because I still have some more. I don't know how long you have here.
I have as much time as you need, Don.
Okay, so this is a question here. Now, I've been mad crazy talking about cross listing. What is your goal? You're only on eBay from everything we've talked about. Is that 100% correct?
Yes, in terms of, well, yeah. I mean, I did open a Poshmark account, but I wasn't successful with it. So, yeah,
Lucky
I'm
for
on
me,
eBay.
yeah.
Although I do local stuff, so I will do some items on like, Craigslist or Facebook Marketplace or OfferUp, that kind of thing. So I'll do that. But in terms of the online, yeah, eBay.
Are you not looking into, say, cross listing or Amazon or FBA or RA at all? Just curiosity's sake, because that's
I,
one of the biggest questions I get, which I do all of those. I just don't talk
yeah.
about them as much.
I'm considering it. The more and more I've talked with other YouTubers and resellers about Amazon FBA and how successful they've been with it. So I'm thinking about it, but I see. I don't want to say I don't like it because I haven't tried it. So I want to make sure I get the experience with it. I'm thinking of starting it at the beginning of next year and dabbling in it a little bit and experimenting. But um, I just don't. The thing for me, Don, I don't think I would get the rush out of the hunt at a Walmart as I would rifling through dirty boxes at the basement of an estate sale from a house from the early 1900s.
Well,
That.
I get that, and I'm not a big fan on. I do the Walmart only because I go there all the time. If I'm in Walmart, I do check every time. Right now, they've got a huge amount of stuff on clearance in the electronics section. I bought a bunch, so I'm just shoot that out there. But the kind of deals that I like going to for FBA or RA are wholesale. I go digging around in warehouses for stuff that's been sitting there for years that they forget about. And that's the kind of deals that I usually get for FBA. It's stuff in bulk. You can have the treasure hunt too. Once you get into it, I guess you could say. When I first started, it was just all RA items. I hadn't a clue on wholesale when we first got into, FBA books back in, what was it, 7, 8 years ago. But, you can have the treasure hunt, believe it or not, because we do sell antiques and collectibles on there, and comic books you can sell on Amazon too, if you didn't know.
Right.
You
Right.
can get, full-fledged approval to do comics in its own
Yep.
category. And I know a lot of people talk about, just list it in Home Goods or somewhere else. You're going to have a probably almost 100% more chance on having a return on it because they won't think it's going to be a collectible item. They'll think it's new, and people just don't pay attention when they buy on Amazon. I get that all the time.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I don't have many issues with it, but I hear that all the time. And I've shared some huge Amazon accounts with like my patrons and stuff. And one of the biggest things was that the biggest complaints on Amazon on all the collectibles people are from people who aren't collectible or aren't collectors buying it because they put it in a home section. So you stick it in collectibles. I mean, it's a different story. If you ever need some help on that, I'd be happy to, get you some interest into selling comics or cross listing them on there. So anyway,
Thank you.
Now here's one that we've kind of touched on a little bit here. Everybody's made a mistake. I've lost money in the beginning. I've made my bad sales. I haven't made a bad sale in God knows how many years. And I'm not saying I'm perfect. If I'm not sure, I just don't buy it. So I eliminate my chances by not buying stuff that I'm not really darn sure on. What's your biggest mistake that you wished you would have known how to avoid before it happened?
Biggest mistake.
Reselling, of course.
Yeah. I would say it actually would relate to when I jumped back into things, Don. Because when I was doing it in 2000, that was back in the day when you would literally bring your stuff to the post office. There was no way that you could print stuff out on your, like, that stuff was like just starting to come out like a little bit later.
Yep. When
And
I started, you could take checks.
Yeah. So when I started, believe it or not, when I started getting back into it, like really hardcore, like 2017-ish, I was actually, the first couple times I was actually going over to a post office. And I remember I distinctly, it was like the first trip over there, and I had a conversation with I actually speak to the manager, and I said, how could anyone make a living doing this with these rates? And they're like, well, you really need to start, printing your labels from home. You get a discount through eBay and all this stuff. And so I started doing that. I noticed the savings, but even then I didn't fully realize anything about FedEx Smart Post. I didn't know anything about FedEx Home Delivery. I didn't know anything about regional boxes. I didn't know anything about the padded flat rate envelope, which is ironically now my most popular video on eBay with 38,000 people who've watched that one is where I talk about saving money through the padded flat rate. But that's just, I
Boxes
didn't
in the
know.
padded bag. Yeah, I saw that
Yeah.
one too.
Yeah. So I would tell you overall, like as a general topic, it was the lack of knowledge about and how much money I was losing on shipping in the beginning. That's why I do a lot of shipping videos, because I try to teach people from the mistakes that I made and what I learned on how to save. And now I've turned that into an asset that I feel like I have, like that's what I do. Like if I don't know about something, I dive totally into it.
Same
So I
here.
learn the ins and outs. So I take that weakness and I try to master it. And that's what I've done with shipping. And I'm currently trying to do that with, as you probably know, postcards. So that's what I try to do in different areas of reselling.
Well, I got a good one. I'm sure you've probably seen it, but I got a good one on the postcard. I do it the same way. And again, I charge for everything that goes out my door. So I don't do too many postage videos, only because I don't pay for the postage. My shipping costs are zip. That literally I charge the full cost. I get the discount. I charge the full cost. It covers my fees, and I just added a quarter in for all the ones on my other account to compensate for the payment fee. So anyway, but I charge, everything's calculated shipping. And when they pay the full price, I keep the difference. It covers my sleeves, my bags, everything. I don't pay a dime. Maybe I get an extra few cents at the end of the day, but literally it's pretty much a wash as far as I'm concerned on shipping supplies. I had done a few videos in the past, but I don't worry about the region. I don't worry about boxes. I don't worry about when the prices change. And again, everybody has their own model. Some
Right.
people don't want to have, free shipping, or they'll say, hey, shipping's included. I don't know how many times on some of the folks who say shipping's included, they messed up on their calculations in their head when an offer came in and they lost some money on it, or they weren't straight on the shipping and all that. I calculate everything out and I never have an issue. So every time it changes, I don't have anything to do. What about, do you have eBay business policy set up?
You're gonna smack me over the hand with a ruler,
I'm
Don.
about to, if
I'm
you say
worried the
no.
professor is gonna be mad at me.
That's like the simplest way to keep your stuff straight. I'm telling you.
I know. I don't. Although Don, I don't know what your take on this is, but I've heard people who have the business policies that one of the drawbacks on it is that if you're trying to edit certain things in bulk, that it causes some limitations of bulk editing. If you do, if you
Never.
have
I
that,
edit 500 at a time. It never
that's
had a
not true.
single issue
So
in my life.
that's not true.
No, I've done
Okay.
it forever. I've had
Okay.
bulk since we do bulk edits. I'll do them in 500. Well, I don't do them as much anymore because it's all good till cancel and they relist on their own. But bulk edits we've done for years. You do 500 at a time in a bulk edit. I've never ever had an issue. We've got like, the only thing we did, we set up different categories. So I've got like 1 to 4 or up to 4 pounds on everything, and then another one 4 pounds and over, because when we do adult magazines and things like that, you can't send them overseas. It's against the law. So
Yep.
there's certain
Yep.
things that you can't do. So, and like first class international ends at 4 pounds. So I don't send anything global priority or anything like that. So if it's over 4 pounds, I have a separate policy, by weight. So everything catches it. And then if it's over 4 pounds, it goes through eBay's global shipping program. So I don't worry about it. Again, they pay for shipping, so it's all done through that. But I would honestly set up the policies for everything, because go ahead. I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
No. I'm definitely going to look into it. But now, and actually, now that you said that, that just reminded me, if you want just to go back about earlier mistake, because sometimes I'm hesitant to jump into things if I haven't like done all my research on it, and if I heard like a bad thing, then I hold back. And one of the things that I would say was a mistake was not jumping into global shipping program earlier. And I'm a full 100% like you advocate of the global shipping program. I love it. It's definitely improved my sales. A lot of things go that way, and they usually pay full price. And it's like you said, it's one of the things one of my friends said at the flea market who I ran into. He said to me, are you selling on global shipping program? I said, no. And he goes, look at this whole flea market. He goes, yeah, you could set up and sell this flea market. He goes, and think of this as eBay, as the United States. He goes, but what if you could connect every flea market from all over the world together and sell there? Wouldn't you rather do that? And, he's telling me how many customers I'm missing out on. So I said, you know what? I'll trial it for a month and see how it goes. And I have had no problems with it, and it's been nothing but great. So that was an early mistake of mine. was, I mean, I'd say I went a year without doing global shipping program.
Yeah,
And
Lord knows what you missed on that.
that's
What I
right.
can say on that is if the bot whatever you're selling makes it to eBay's facility, if anything happens to the box after that, eBay pays them back. You're not out a dime. I've never had one not make it to eBay's facility on any global shipping
Yeah.
program.
Oh,
I've
oh.
had a couple damaged items that eBay covered every dime of the cost, including reimbursing me for the shipping costs. So
Now I don't know if you want to address this, Don, because you know Aaron, he's I think he's one of your Patreons, and he's in both of our groups a lot. And he posted something on Facebook recently which said, you know, if anyone's saying that eBay covers the whole thing with global shipping program, it's not true, because he claimed he had an item that the person said there was something wrong with it, and that eBay made him do like a return on it. And
there's two different stories on that now. If
okay,
there was something wrong with the item and it was sent that way, it wasn't damaged in shipping, eBay
yeah,
does not cover that. That's a totally different aspect. They
yeah,
don't, what they cover, if the box gets lost, the box gets damaged, the
right,
box is destroyed, or it can't be delivered for some reason, they cover every dime on that, because I've
yeah,
personally had it happen with the 78 record that cost $178. They reimbursed everything. Every dime that I spent shipping and everything was reimbursed to my account that same day. As soon as I called them up on it, it was taken care of. Now, the only sad part about that is when you get to those issues and it's a global shipping program, it's easier to just call them. But again, I have the whatever you concierge service or whatever through the Anchor store. So it's like a 2-minute ordeal on the phone. Now, again, if the person says it wasn't as advertised, that's your fault for it not being as advertised. eBay takes all delivery responsibility. So those are two different avenues of what could be wrong with it. Let's say you sold a comic book, you sold that Hulk comic book there, and there's a page missing in the inside. eBay's not going to do a thing for you. But if let's say the box was bent in half and ripped or something, and the comic book is now creased so badly, eBay's going to cover every dime of that damage to that book and cover your cost on it. So the buyer will be refunded and you won't be out anything either. So
yeah.
that's what happens with the global shipping program. And I've dealt with it personally. We're top rated plus in the entire globe. Every continent that eBay is on that I can sell on, I am top rated plus. We sell enough. You've got to sell like, I think it's 200 items in certain areas in a certain time frame, as well as so much money. I don't remember what the totals are, but literally I'm top rated plus in every one of those because of global shipping program, as well as selling directly. We do ship directly to 7 different countries, and I've never had an issue with those countries. England being like the top one that you won't have any issues with. Australia is the bomb. I've never ever had an issue with Australia, Japan, England, France, Canada. I think there's one more I do. Japan. I think that's it right there. But if you do those, follow that, you can block everybody else off. Again, policies you can set up to do all that. All my stuff is set up that way in a policy. And the other complaint I get about the policies is people saying that if the item, if you have free returns, that means you have to take them back from overseas. No, with a business policy, which you can't do any other way that I know of, with a business policy, I can set up a U.S. return policy, free return shipping for U.S. customers, and then foreign overseas, every foreign overseas one has to pay for return shipping. So there's no losing aspect from my point. As long as I described it right, I photographed it right. Now, of course, the person could lie and said it wasn't as described, but you know,
Right.
I've never had that happen on an overseas one. So yeah, you could get stung, and I have been, or I've had to take some items back, and again, not recently. It's been a long time. I don't even know how long it's been since we had a return, but I had to take some items back in the U.S. on these, and they stated a different reason. But I offer free return shipping, and they would have been able to send it back no matter what. So I don't care what reason they say they want to return it for in the U.S. because I'm going to take it back no matter what anyway.
Yeah.
You know, just look at my feedback if you wonder why I do that. Look through the first page of my feedback. It's all like that. So, and again, I'm not trying to brag. It's just what it is.
Right.
You know, there's nothing to brag. It's just what happens when you do. You know, we ship within 24 hours, and you know the whole works. I know your schedule may be much different than mine.
No, Don. We're very similar in that regards. I have 1-day shipping on everything. I've never missed it. I have free return 60 days for the reasons you've described on your show. Same reasons for me. It just makes sense.
How many returns do you get?
Almost none.
And that's with giving free returns,
Right.
free paid returns for a long
Right.
length of time.
Right.
I almost never get one.
Right.
You know, in all honesty, I can't tell you when the last time I did. And one of the last ones I did that they did open, I don't remember how long ago it was, but the point was that they did something wrong on their end and admitted something in the email, and then eBay wouldn't let them send it back and actually gave me my money and the person was out the item. Apparently, I don't know the whole story, but I got my money back. eBay handled it all, and I didn't have to worry about a darn thing. So, you know, it's a good program. eBay does. People get down on eBay and say, you know, they side with this person or that person. eBay doesn't look at it as you or them or me against them. eBay looks at it as a legal standing. So is there enough proof to prove that the seller was the one in right versus the buyer being in right? There's no proof unless eBay was physically there at both ends when it went out, filed it to the location, and then watched it being opened. That's not going to happen. So eBay has to side with the ponderance of evidence that's going to be accepted in a court of law. eBay is in a court every day of the week somewhere. I bet you $1 million.
Yeah.
I know they've got a lawyer in my state as well as most every other state in the union, just like Disney used to have, or probably still does. So I don't blame it on eBay when they side with one or the other, because if you've worked in business and stuff, you know, like for me, I can't side. Like if I'm running a restaurant or I'm a regional and the customer tells me one thing and the employees all tell me something else, I still got to give the customer the food or whatever the case may be. You know, even if I know that the employee's in the right, I have no way. I didn't see it. It'd be
Right.
my word taking my employee word over a customer's word. You know, it's the same basic principle on eBay. There's no way, and I know people are going to make some nasty comments on this, because usually when I say stuff like this, somebody sure enough comes out with a triad of paragraphs of why I'm an idiot and why I don't know what the heck I'm talking about. I worked in customer service as a regional manager. My region handled $11.2 million. I was personally in control of every dime of that. I was fully responsible for it, every aspect of it. So I know customer service. You know, you either suck it up and do the right thing and just give them their money back and don't argue with it, or you don't and you lose some business. You know, I'm not open to, I don't get all these scam things. You don't get them either. So everybody I talk to who does what I do on the returns has the same outlook. Now, we're not selling clothing. So, you know, I know those who sell clothing are going to tell you that they're going to rent the pieces of clothing and then return them in 30 days and get them back. And I know that does happen maybe 10 or 15% of the time.
I had that happen with a costume once.
What kind of costume was it? A kiss?
No, no, it was a queen, or it was a queen's outfit. It was funny. The person claimed that and I hesitate to say this because a lot of times people think anytime there's a return claim, it's a scam, you know. But this time, the person got it right before Halloween, said she could tell just by looking at it that it won't fit. Got the return authorized through eBay before Halloween, then waited to ship it back until like a couple days after Halloween, and came back and it was clearly open. The person clearly used it. So I gave the return, but then in that situation, like if I feel someone's like been manipulative, I just block them. So that's what I did. Yeah,
okay,
so I just blocked her.
Yeah, I block them and I move on. If somebody returns or does something, my block list is high right now. I mean, I probably on eBay, I probably have 70 or so names on there.
Yeah.
If somebody cancels a listing after the first day, I block them too.
Yep.
It's just something I always do, because I'll give you a 24-hour time frame to cancel a listing, and I won't have any problem. You can buy all you want, but if you wait, I had somebody cancel the other day, 3 days after the fact, you know, and I already sent them an email because I think they had like real low feedback, or they asked a question or something. And the point was they never responded. Then 3 days afterwards, they're telling me they don't want it. It was a mistake. You know, I did take it, but I blocked them. And I know you technically don't have to cancel for somebody, but all they have to do is get it and then say there's something wrong with it and send it back.
Yeah.
Just cancel it, block them, and then move on. That's what I do for everything like that. If somebody's ripping you off on eBay, they're not ripping you off. They think they're ripping eBay off. They don't know who you are. They don't really care who you are. They just want the free item. You just happen to be the person who was on or had the item they wanted to steal. So, you know, I don't hold it against them. You know, well, I do, but I don't take it personally at all. I don't really care what they do. I can give away money. I mean, not really give it away, but that's just throwing money out. But you have to do that in a business. I don't know where I've ever worked that I didn't have to give a customer something for free just to satisfy the interest in it, or alleviate, some of the problems with it. So I'm sure you've had, issues like that where you just got to give it away. Just like he says, there's just no other way around it. So
yeah, no, I'm like you that
I haven't.
Yeah, go ahead.
One more question here.
Okay, go ahead.
You still there, Dominic?
Yeah, I'm still there. Go ahead.
My sound just went off. Can you hear me?
Yep, I hear you.
Okay, my sound just went dead for a second there. Another one here. Now, I've run up and been like 2 seconds too late to get like what would have been a score of my life. Have you ever had an issue where you've walked in too late to get the big score and watched several other people walk out with some big score? Now, my last big one that I missed out, if you know what Micronauts are, there was a bunch
Oh
of
yeah.
Microman and Takari figures from Japan, the original Micromans with some new Hasbro Micronauts. It was a huge assortment of them, a couple $1,000s. Somebody walked out with $100. That was the one I missed by like 2 seconds. Had I been in line or been over there just a few minutes more at the sale, I could have been the guy buying it. Have you ever had any of those issues before?
Yeah, I mean, I remember one time distinctly walking into an estate sale, and it's one of these things, especially if you're a one-man show, you can't get to every estate sale at the beginning. So, you try to use research and you try to strategically plan what's geographically located where, how could you be most efficient in your route. And I walk into the house and, I talk about comic books being my number one thing. Guy's walking down the stairs with a whole entire, long box of comic books that he just purchased. And I'm like, and he had just walked up the stairs before me, and so he found it and got it. And so there's stuff like that. Recently when I got this, I have it right here. I know you think you might have seen it. I got this big lot of postcards. Well, right next to it was a big bag of trade cards, and I know you do well in trade cards.
Oh
And I
yeah.
was about to go grab it, but I was looking at something else, and another guy who came in, he's an eBay guy, he's a dealer guy. He just comes in, he just grabs the bag, throws it in his big bag, and walks out the room. I'm like, damn it. And it was another time, and this is a lesson I learned a long time ago, is to not take your hand off things if you want it. And so I had this funny, you were talking about coffee cans the other day. You did your video on coffee cans. And I had this coffee can that I wanted to get, and I put it down for a second. There was no one else in the room. I was all alone in a basement in like this back area. There's no one there. I'm like, all right, I'm cool. I put it down. I'm looking up. All of a sudden, some guy just walks in out of nowhere, grabs the can, walks out, and I'm like, like I can't claim it because I didn't have my hand on it, So I've learned I take the item, I literally hold it, I put it in my box until I'm done researching it. If I realize I don't want it, then I put it back. So that's a lesson I learned a long time ago.
That's what I do too. When I go to an estate sale too, I usually call them ahead of time and ask what they have. How much do they have? Is it a lot of postcards? Can they give me estimates on it? Some won't answer you at all. Some don't care what you want to say. They just want to get you there. But the good ones are the ones that I personally know. I call. Maybe 15% of the ones around here I get to go into before the sale starts. I know somebody, or we've done this for so long, or I'm giving an appraisal on something at the sale. So luckily, at least I got an in on some of them. But yeah, you got to hold on to everything, and I do mean everything at a sale like that. I was at a this was probably 2 or 3 years ago when I did a lot of garage sales, and they had these 8-foot tables out there. And I'm standing on the one side of the table, and there's some boxes in front of me that a guy actually brought out for me to look at. He brought them out just for me. Another guy walks around to the other side of the table and grabs a box out of this box that I've been brought out. I'm like, what are you doing?
Right.
Then it turned into, what do you want me to knock your block off? That's what the guy tells me. And I'm like, go ahead and try it. I'll just call the police, and then I'll get the score, and you're going to end up getting arrested. I wasn't going to fight over a box of stuff, but that's the attitude I get around here. That's why I don't do many garage sales. There's one guy around here. I'm not going to call his car or his truck, because somebody's going to know who watches this, who I'm talking about. But he shows up the night before at these sales. Every good estate sale, he tries to get in the night before. Same with garage sales. And there's a couple that used to do that. One of them passed away, I think. So they're obviously they're not doing it anymore. But those are the ones that drive me nuts, are the ones that got to undercut everybody else. Now, I do go into some sales ahead of time. Most of the time, I can't buy anything. It's just to appraisal, or I'll at least know what's there. So I'm at the whim of being the first in line at the sale, still, is like everybody else. At least I'll know if it's worth going to. But I'm not a greedy person, and I'm not going to fight. I'm not going to push, and I'm not going to take something that's sitting in front of somebody. I've got moral standards, and that's not fair, proper business standard. I know everybody says anything's fair in reselling, but it's not that way. I want people to respect me for honoring what's right. If somebody has something there that's on a table that's worth $1,000 and they have 50 cents on it, I don't have a problem with only paying 50 cents for it, because again, that's what they're asking for it. I'm not ripping somebody off if they're only wanting 50 cents for it. That's a different story than grabbing stuff and trying to snake and load it up. Now, as you said, of course, you've got to put it in a box and hold on to it till you're sure. So sometimes I'll walk around with, a box of something almost the entire sale. I'll be in the estate sale for an hour, or at a place for an hour, and I'll be holding on this whole time. And at the end of the day, I'm like, I don't really want it, and I'll still put it back. And I don't have a problem doing that, because if you don't do that, some other knucklehead's going to come in there and grab it from in front of you and not care. Even if you're looking through it, I've had people pull stuff out of the box I'm actually physically looking through. That drives me nuts. And that's part of the reason I don't do a lot of whatever everybody else does. I'm not a big people person, and that's why, because I've done these sales where I don't know what it is like where you live, but around here, everybody's greedy, undercutting, dishonest. It seems like most of the auction companies around here, and I'm not exaggerating, all the auctioneers, most of them, there's one or two that haven't been in jail, but almost every one of them has been caught doing something, including most of the estate sale companies have been charged with theft from the states that they're buying from.
God,
so
dude.
one thing I always recommend to everybody is to look them up on the Better Business Bureau or check with the courts to make sure if you're going to deal with one of these estate sales. Just like accountants. And I know people think, that's overboard, but I've run into issues where these people have had issues. In fact, one of them that was running an auction, which I did check into, it turns out the guy's license was expired and he got arrested because of me checking into if he was legit. So, people run auctions. You have to have an auctioneer's license. You have to go to school in most states. And if you don't have one in some states, it's a big charge.
Right.
I don't know what happened to him after that, but he never ran another auction at that facility anymore.
Yeah.
So,
No, you're right. No, I tell people, I've said this before on my own videos, is not to be a bully at the sales, not to be overly aggressive, to have morals, not bullying people around. I mean, we had one recently where guy was there. He showed up like hours in advance, so he's first in line, right? And there was a big house. There was like tons of stuff. So he goes down to the basement, which is normally where the best stuff is. The big giant room, right? He walks down there, he puts his hand on the table where there's tons of stuff on the table, and he just says, "I'm buying the room." And they said, "You can't do that." And he's put up a big fuss, like, "What do you mean? Why? I got here first. I waited in line for hours. I want to buy the room. Why can't I buy the room?" And this person who's running the sales, she's running a business where she has clients. Where are her clients? And it's not, you can't do that. Like, at the end of the day, you could come in and try to clean out if you
clean up, yeah.
But you can't come from the beginning and walk down and buy out the room. And so they kicked him out of the sale, and he's like, "I'm gonna call the media, and I'm gonna expose you because this isn't right. It's not fair." And everyone's like, "Get out!" He's never gonna come back again because of what happened. But
made a scene.
Yeah, but he embarrassed himself. Don't do that.
Well, sometimes I'll have to say, if let's say I'm at a sale and they've got a card table full of 1,000 records or something, sometimes I'll ask, "Will you sell all the records?" I'm not going to buy a whole room. Or if they've got comic books, like you would say too,
100%.
Would you sell me all the comic books?
100%. That's totally different.
Sometimes if there's someone looking through them, they'll be looking at you like, "What are you talking about? I'm still looking through these." So, usually you have to let them finish looking through the box they're looking in and stuff like that. I mean, if the sale won't do it, I'm not going to push it. That's the end of it. They say no, I move on. I won't ask a second time ever.
That's right.
My personal rule. No is no, and I'm done. I'm going to move on, and I'm going to do something else at the sale. So
yeah, I mean, there's just so much stuff to get out there. It's not worth getting too worked up about it.
Yeah, that's the other thing that I see. I know some people, if you're new into this, have an issue and you can't find inventory or stuff like that. I could sell half of my inventory and still have, way more than most people would even fathom having. Once you buy in bulk like this, you're going to see that it's very easy to get if you find the right sourcing material. So I don't worry if I miss something. That's why everybody says, "Well, if you don't go to garage sales every day or go to estate sales every day, you're missing stuff." Well, I get stuff every day. So what am I really missing? I might be missing something at that sale, but you could say that about anywhere you go, that you could always be missing something. I'd never stop. I'd be sourcing every minute of my living, breathing breath, because every time I go out, I could miss something.
Right. Hey, Don, you're not in California. You're missing stuff there.
Well, that's a perfect example. I saw Chris's post. Yeah. California. I have been to California before. We went to Whittier, and I had been to some places over there, and it's a madhouse, but there was just so much stuff to find there that I was shocked. Another area that I was surprised. I worked in Denver for a little while. And we went to Golden and stuff and did the tour, and the company paid up, and we did all that kind of stuff. We went to one of those hoedowns with Bronco Bulls. It was a huge place that had a slide inside with like dance floor. There's no bigger restaurants other than in like Texas and Denver area. If you ever been to some of those massive restaurants out there. But I loved going around and doing that kind of stuff and traveling. And in Denver, the pickings were extremely good considering that it's a newer area compared to like New England or something. I was honestly shocked at how many, I would say maybe richer folks moved there with all their belongings. And now there's just I don't know people nowadays, but 15 years ago, Denver was like the bomb. Even the antique stores there, I was making money at, because every time I was off, I stayed there for a couple weeks, and on my days off, I didn't come home because I could get out of there sooner, and then I just thrifted. I went to antique malls. And when we went up to, I worked in Boston area. We stayed in Salem, and at the House of Seven Gables, we actually stayed there with the wife for 2 days. She got to go with me. We flew in early to go to Brimfield. So every time I worked somewhere, everywhere I've worked, if they've sent me somewhere, we've sourced across the country from California all the way to the East Coast and all the way as far north almost. I haven't been to Oregon, like Portland before, but everywhere else than that, I've sourced everywhere we went for the last 20 years. So anyway, there's stuff everywhere you go, everywhere.
Yeah, you're right. And Denver's an amazing place from everything I've heard about. I've not been there, but I will be there in February of 2020. I'm going there for a business trip. As you know, what I do with these business trips is I combine them and I make reselling ventures out of them. And I've been planning this for years, Don. For me, there's something very, very exciting in Denver related to the comic book industry, which I know you know because I've heard you talk about before. But the world's largest comic book shop is in Denver. It's Mile High Comics. And I have talked to Chuck Rosansky, and I cannot wait to go out there and meet up with him and, you know, and do some videos in his shop and talk to him about, you know, the guy's a legend. And
Mile High has been around since I was a kid. When I was a kid, you could send away. They had lists that they would mail you, and you could send away to Mile High, and they would send. It was you know, like a subscription comic book service, and we used to order, you know, early Batman 10-cent covers and stuff from Mile High when I was a kid, when I was like 8.
Right.
So you know, I've known Mile High for. You know, they've got probably the biggest collection in the world for high dollar comics. I know they auction and stuff too, but yeah.
Yeah. They had these 2-page ads in all the you know, in the older comic books, and that's how I learned about it. In fact, Don, I could break some news on your channel, some history that I've never told before, and I was going to do a video about this one day, but I haven't done it yet. So
shoot it out, Dom.
Well, when I was a kid, I would read about the Mile High, you know, Mile High Comics do those ads that we were talking about, and when before I jumped back, you know, majorly into the reselling, I was trying to regain my comic book collection that I stupidly sold when I was younger for a Sega Genesis. And my kids, as they were growing up and we were reading comic books together, they were like, you know, Dad, why'd you throw out all those comics? You know, we're mad at you. We wish you still had them. So I kept trying to rebuild it. I'm buying all this stuff, and I'm reading them too. And I come across the Mile High comic book ads, and I say, you know, I wonder if that place is still around. So I go on to YouTube of all places. I type in Mile High Comics, and sure enough, Chuck Rosansky comes up, and he's doing a tour of his shop. And I was blown away. I mean, this guy's got a 1 million square foot facility filled with comic books, and just the amount of paper he has and collectibles, I could not believe it. I was hooked. And it reinvigorated me to try to get back. I said to myself, wow, like he was talking about how he walks through these rows of comics every night and just touches the books. Just like he just touches them just to get a sense of what it's like to be around that many comics. I said, wow, you know, that's amazing. Like I always wanted to have my own business and stuff. And I said, you know what? Like that video was important. It really motivated me. One day I'm going to show it. I'm going to do a video that's like, this was a video that actually got me into doing, you know, getting back into my reselling business. It was a major component. It wasn't the only thing. It was a major thing was watching those Mile High videos. And, you know, I never told that story before, so breaking on the Auction Professor's channel right there.
That's pretty interesting. I've probably seen that a few years ago, and I used to hunt out all those kind of videos. Nowadays, I don't have any time to watch many videos,
right.
But you know, you're in the same aspect and boat as I am. I have a warehouse full of shelved records, so trust me, when you walk through and it's just, you know, 4 foot. Well, I don't even think it's 4 feet. I think it's 3.5 feet between the shelves. I think we measured, and it's literally, you can barely walk through, and it's just records as far as you can see for a 30-foot rows at a time, you know, and it's a sight to see when you see mass quantity like that. Especially when you know it's something you own and you get money out of. Obviously, I don't have the ability to list 90% of those at any good time. So, but as you know, I pay nothing, and you do the same thing. We buy a big bulk. I buy 5,000 records. I sell half a dozen. I might get all my money back from them. I'll pull out some higher dollar ones, and the rest are going to sit there until whatever. So when I want to retire, or, you know, we're bored, we're going to eventually have a record shop, you know, not a physical store, but a online record store, because we're fast approaching. Probably, I think we're looking in the beginning of October, having our own stores up, our own personal online stores that everything will be listed on. So we'll have stuff that's only there to draw people in from our other platforms. So we'll list like some good stuff on eBay, some good stuff on Amazon, Etsy, Discogs, and all those other platforms. But then some of the best stuff's going to be on my site with our prices on it. So we've talked around, and marketing wise, that seems to be the best way to get top dollar out of your site. Don't list everything on every site, but the majority of it. Keep some of your better high dollar stuff that you like running the market on. That's just a ploy, I guess you could say. Yeah. We're going to have to wrap this up in a minute here because it is approaching 9. Well, it's actually after 9 now. So wow, I don't want to hold you up too much. I was up till 2 o'clock in the morning posting a video, the last video I put up, and I'm going to be up a little while tonight. So I know your schedule is probably 12+ hour days, I would imagine, as well, because that's what I do at minimum. So
yeah, I'm usually up till around 2, and I sleep generally between like 2 and 6-ish.
That's about average. Yeah, 4 hours maybe. I'm lucky if I get a night. Some days it's not so much, but
yeah, and try to sneak in a little bit more if I have time on other days. But it all works out.
No more naps for me. I don't have those times. I remember those days when we were whooped out or we went, biking or something like that. And then, just let's go lounge down on the sofa down here. But we're going to call it quits. If Dom, you want to just shout out one of your going away message here on something that can be helpful to everybody, we will let you get your last word in there, and then we will say goodbye in just a moment from there.
All right, my going away tip is to make sure that you are not just examining the surfaces of things, and you are doing a little bit of digging. So don't just look at the top of a box. Make sure you dig to the bottom of the box. Don't just have your eyes focused on the table in front of you. Make sure you look at the wall. Make sure you look at the floor. There could be a valuable rug or car mat right beneath your feet that everyone's been walking over for hours. Look inside cupboards. Look inside drawers. That's where some of the best stuff is that I find. And I find a lot of people overlook that stuff because they're just psychologically kind of trained to have their eyes just look at what's on tables and what's in front of them. They don't look at what's exactly right in front of them, just on a wall or on a ceiling, or it's just not what they're trained to look at. So that's where you can find a lot of treasures.
Yeah, I'll piggyback on that one as well too. That's a good point. Just like the coffee can, and he buys coffee cans as well as I do. Coffee cans are something that I at first never thought much of, but we see them all the time in a garage. They're not for sale usually, but I can almost always buy them. They're usually sitting in Grandpa's garage. They just brought their stuff over to have a garage sale, and there's cans on the shelves with nuts and bolts in them. So I find cans. Geez, if I went to a bunch more sales, I'd find them constantly. My pickers pick them up all the time. Sometimes I can get 20 or 30 cans at a nice, good sale. So anyway, word for the day is pay attention and look at everything. I'd like to thank Dom for coming on tonight. It was a pleasure to have him on. Good guy. He's got some good knowledge. Again, if you haven't subscribed, I've popped his direct link down in the description. I'm going to alter the title here. We didn't want to put too much out, and it was a last minute kind of thing. I appreciate him hopping on at the last minute here. Again, if you haven't checked him out as well, check him out. Chris, the Thrift Shop Hustler, is on too. He is one of our 3 chains here that we're going to be doing a show. So again, if you haven't checked out Chris as well too, go to his channel and subscribe to him as well too. I'm going to let you guys go. You guys have a good night. Again, I appreciate every one of you for being on tonight and paying attention to us. Hopefully you learned something. If you didn't, you probably weren't paying attention. But good night to everybody, and it was good to see you all.